Hey, what's going on, guys? So I'm finally back for part 2 of my video series on volume photography. I know I had initially said that I would have this entire video series out in about a week or 2 weeks time, and it's been like a year and I'm barely at part 2. So I'm not going to make any promises as to how fast I'm going to get this done, but hopefully I can get it done a lot quicker than I have been. A lot of you guys have contacted me with questions. I really appreciate the support while I was off of YouTube. I'll make another video kind of go into some things that have happened. But without further ado, let's jump into this video and let's talk about what I came to talk about. So initially I had planned for part 2 to be about lighting and posing, but I decided to talk about something more important than lighting and posing. If you've watched any of my videos, you're probably wondering, well, what could possibly be more important than lighting and posing? Because I say that lighting is the key to any type of photography, whether you're doing real estate, portraits, sports, landscape. Lighting is always the key to everything. So what could be more important than lighting? Well, when it comes to volume photography, that is your organizational skills, kind of your business ability, your ability to stay on task and get things done quickly. I learned this lesson in a very painful way recently. Well, not recently, it's been about 7 or 8 months now. But we had a shoot with one of our larger organizations. There's a lot of things that I should have done differently, a lot of things that I should have not said I would accommodate because it created problems for me. Long story short, it took us longer to get the pictures back than we had anticipated. We had mistakes with it. And like that, the organization dropped us after 4 years. It had nothing to do with the image quality. They were ecstatic about the image quality. To my knowledge, we're the only ones in our area doing this kind of green screen work, and they were ecstatic about the way the images looked. They just weren't happy in the delay in getting things back. And ultimately, at the end of the day, whether it's because of staffing issues, vendor issues, whatever the problem may be, as the owner of the company, all the blame is going to come back on you, and rightfully so. And so even though they were happy with the image quality, I got dropped, and this is after 4 years, about 20 volume shoots with this organization. I had bailed them out of jams on numerous occasions when they had made late appointments and things like that, but without hesitation, they were gone. And that's the reality of the beast whenever it comes to volume photography, is that if you make mistakes, you're going to get dropped. So I'll probably make another video and I'll talk about some of the pitfalls that I got trapped into with that. But what I want to do in this video, I want to talk about how I organize my shoots. Now, I do it different than most of the photographers in my area. I'm real big on customer service. I believe in trying to keep things as easy as possible for the customer and as easy as possible for me. So I tend to overstaff our shoots and do things to try to accommodate the customers and just overall make it easier on me. Not saying this is the best way to go about it. This is the way that I do it. And I understand that you can cut labor costs by not having so many people involved. But I want things to be as smooth of a process as possible. So typically when you get to our shoots, we're going to try to filter everybody to a central location where we're going to have a table set up. Now, when we do indoor shoots, this is much easier because we'll just basically unlock one door. That's the door that everybody's going to come through, and they're going to get filtered to this table. When we do our outside shoots, especially like if we're in a park, where people can approach from anywhere, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge to try to funnel people into a specific area, but we still do our best. And what'll happen is you get there, we're going to have a table set up. There's going to be somebody there manning it. That person who's manning the table is going to have extra order forms. One of the things that you need to count on, especially when you do youth organization shoots, is if, let's say we pass out 100 order forms, we bring an extra 50 to 60 order forms the day of the shoot because about 50% of the people are not going to bring their order forms back. Now, when you do things like high school photo shoots where the parents aren't going to be accompanying the kids to the shoot, that's a little bit different. We tend to get about a 99% return rate of the envelopes. But on the days that we shoot the youth organizations where like little leagues and things like that, where parents are going to come with the kids, about half of them don't bring their order forms back. And if you don't have enough, everybody's going to complain at you, like it's your fault that they lost their original order form. So when they get to the table, we're going to have extra order forms there. We're going to have somebody there to staff it. We also do things like make change. People don't carry cash very often anymore, and especially if you want to try to upsell, if you are good about it and you take product samples out there, people are going to see things, want to buy extra things, and they may not have exact change for it. I'm actually really bad about taking products out there to showcase, but when we do, inevitably we are going to sell a lot more of our specialty items. I'm just forgetful and lazy and don't always do it. But we also process credit card orders on site. This is big because a lot of people don't carry cash anymore, and so what we do is we use the little square readers. They cost about $10 at Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, just about anywhere you go. They've got these things, they're about $10. I think when you sign up with Square, they'll give you one for free even for the first one. But they also break very easy. So I carry 3 or 4 of these things in my bag. They charge me a 2% fee to process credit card orders, 3% if we have to manually enter the card number in. And it's not that much. It's well worth it to have those things because we get a lot of sales through credit card orders. I would probably say about 20% of our sales are via credit debit card orders. And usually within 2 days, the money's deposited right into my bank account. I've had no problems whatsoever with their system. It works reliably. I haven't had problems with chargebacks, none of that kind of stuff. Everything just works well. So I highly recommend that you process that. I know that some of the photographers in my area, they're cash only and exact change only in the envelope. They don't want to deal with making change. They don't want to deal with any of that. And that's fine, that's their choice, but I think we would lose out on a significant number of sales if we did that. So I make it easier on our customer. Now that first person that they encounter will hopefully be able to answer most questions that the people have, because you will have people that will ask you ridiculous questions, and sometimes it's the same questions over and over. If you look at our order forms, I don't carry a ton of items because I want to make things simple. I look at some of my kids' order forms that they get from their school, and I'm confused as to what comes with each package, what is the specialty item. You know, there's just page and line after line of just different products. I keep it simple. I keep it to the basic stuff that people actually buy, because a lot of the stuff people rarely, if ever, buy, and so I don't worry about it. If somebody does come up and say, hey, can you order me, like for example, I had a woman who wanted custom coasters. Hey, no problem, we sell them through the vendor. I just don't take up the space on the order form with it. But you'll have a lot of people come up and they'll ask the same questions. Well, what does the cup look like? What does the plaque look like? What does this look like? And then you just point them right back to the order form, show them the picture of it, and then they know exactly what the product looks like. But you will have those kinds of things. And I want as few distractions as possible whenever I'm actually out there shooting. I don't want people coming up asking me questions because it just slows down my rhythm, my timing, and paying attention to how I'm getting the kids posed and that kind of thing. Because oftentimes in these shoots, we're only getting 45 seconds to a minute per kid to get a good quality shot, and it's on to the next kid. So if I'm standing there talking to a parent, explaining something to them, it just slows me down. So once they've made it past the first person, we're going to group them up into teams. And then when it's the scheduled team's turn, I'm going to have my assistant bring them up to me. We do things a little bit different depending on what kind of shoot we're doing here. My general rule of thumb, if I'm going to shoot an organization that has more than 6 teams or more than 100 kids on a specific team, I'm going to have 2 photographers. Now you may be asking yourself, well, how is there more than 100 kids on a team? Sometimes in the summertime we'll do youth swim programs, and it may be ages 4 through 17 or 18 that are all on one team. Might be more than 100 kids. We might photograph a youth wrestling program, same thing, age 4 to 17, might be more than 100 kids on one team. And in those situations, I have a second photographer because typically the organization is going to tell all 100 kids or 150 kids or however many are on that team, be here at 4 o'clock for picture day. And then you have this whole mob of kids show up with parents, with brothers, with sisters, and it becomes a chaotic nightmare. If you've only got one photographer trying to get through all of these kids, by the time you get towards the end, you know, an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, people are going to be getting impatient, they're going to be frustrated, it's going to be harder to get the kids posed. So in those situations, I'll bring in a second photographer. Also, if we're going to photograph more than 6 teams, I typically am going to have a second photographer, and the way that I like to do it is one of us photographs the portraits, typically me, the individual portraits, and then they go over to my partner who's going to photograph the team photo. I'll get into this more whenever I talk about lighting. I know some photographers that use one lighting setup for both the team and the individual portraits. I don't like that. I think it's an ugly lighting setup. I think it's lazy. I prefer to have different lighting setups, and so it's easier for me to have a second person over there dealing with the team photos. And there's a lot of good things that come out of having a second photographer there. You get a second set of eyes, somebody to bounce ideas off. Hey, what do you think of this background? How do you think the lighting looks? You know, am I overexposed, underexposed? All those kinds of things you can bounce off of that second photographer. And also the other great benefit of having a second photographer for many of you just starting out, you may not have backups of your equipment. For me, I carry a backup of everything that I use to shoot: a backup camera, backup lenses, backup flashes, and it may not be a one-to-one, you know, strobe light that I'm carrying. It may be speed lights that I'm carrying as a backup, but I have something in case I have a problem, because if you do enough of these, you're gonna run into some kind of problem, some kind of equipment malfunction, and that will be the end of your volume photography career if you turn around and tell 400 or 500 kids, hey, you gotta come back next week because I can't do the shoot because my equipment failed. So if you have a second photographer there, maybe you can borrow that piece of equipment if you don't have a backup, or if nothing else, one of you guys shoots and the other one just, you know, helps to get things posed, and you try to move along as quickly as you can. But I've done things like walked off and left batteries. I had a battery pack overheat one time. You know, just all kinds of different things that can go wrong. Flash triggers are something that I have had problems with in the past where they just don't want to communicate for whatever reason. For that reason, I carry actually 2 different models of flash triggers, not even backups, but a completely different model in case I'm having a problem with one particular one for that shoot. I've had radio interference cause the radio triggers to malfunction in the past on one shoot. So by having a whole different frequency and everything, it solved that problem. So having a second photographer, especially if you don't have a full set of backup gear, is just an awesome thing to have. But typically, like I said, they're going to bring the teams over. I'm going to have an assistant there to help me. Typically, we only have an assistant if we're shooting individual portraits. So if we're going to do green screen photography, or if we're doing more than 100 kids, let's say, and we're both doing individual portraits, each of us will have an assistant. If one is doing portraits and the other one's only doing teams, typically they won't have an assistant assigned to them because they just typically don't need it. So my assistant's job, and these assistants are key. I have several kids that help me, and the quality, it varies greatly. But in theory, they're going to do several things for me. First, they're going to give the kids some direction. When they line them up before the shoot, they're going to tell them, hey, if you have a special bat, if you have a special glove, a ball, whatever you want in the picture, make sure you have it before you get up there. Because otherwise, you're going to start getting kids posed, and then they're going to say, oh, I need my bat. Well, where's your bat? It's in my mom's car. Well, where's your mom's car? Oh, she's on her way. Or it's in the parking lot. And then they've got to go get it. And it just slows down your shoot. So if you tell them before they get up there, it helps to save that time, and that's usually my assistant's job to do that. My assistant is also going to tell the parents, look, if you need to fix their shirt, if you need to fix their hair, whatever you need to do, please do it before they get up there to the photographer, because it's very contagious once one parent does it, where you get ready to shoot a picture and they go, oh wait, let me fix Jenny's bow. They fix Jenny's bow, you take the picture, then Susie comes up, and then mom wants to fix Susie's bow. And it, for whatever reason, it just dominoes and it slows you down. And so we try to make sure all of that is resolved before they get up to the photographer. My assistant is also going to give them kind of some general directions. Hey, this is how we want you to pose, or these are your options for posing. We let kids pose however they want, but we just don't leave it vaguely open to them as to how they're going to pose. The reason for that is if you just don't give them any direction, you're going to have kids just go up there and go, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And it's going to slow you down. So we try to give them a couple of different options, let them pick, and then if mom says, hey, well, I want them to stand like this, okay, no problem. But we just don't want them getting up in front of the camera and trying to make that decision, because again, it slows us down. Now, the most important thing that my assistant does is my assistant is going to look the order form over. My assistant's going to make sure everything on there is legible and that it's all filled out, because this is going to save you a ton of time when you get back and you start processing orders, because people don't give their kids normal names anymore. I shouldn't say normal, but people don't give them the old John, Larry. Kids aren't named that anymore. Kids are named things, and some people name their kids things and they don't even know how to spell what they're trying to name their kid. There will be letters that don't make sense in certain places. Phonetically, it doesn't make sense, but that's what they've named their kid. And so if it's not legible on their order form, good luck trying to figure it out. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to reorder items because of misspellings, and that just costs you time and money. So my assistant is going to go over all that. One thing that we also do on our order forms, what I've learned to do is we use boxes now for each individual letter, so that it forces parents to print in the boxes. We used to just have a line, you know, for like the name and stuff like that. And people would write in cursive and script, and it was sloppy and we couldn't read it. So by forcing them to print in the little boxes, it helps a little. But my assistant's going to check that. My assistant's also going to make sure things like the coach is filled out, the team name, things like that, because we shoot a lot of organizations that may have the same team name in different age groups. So for example, one recreation organization we shoot for, they'll have a black team for age 3 to 4, age 5 to 7, age 8 to 9, age 10 to 11, and then I think 13, 14 is their highest. So If an order form gets misplaced or out of order, it can create a problem. Or if you have a kid that shows up late for their designated time slot, it creates a problem because you can't always just look at a kid and then look at a team photo and assume that you've got the right kid, because a lot of times we have siblings, we have cousins that look alike, and we've mixed kids up that have come out of order, put them with the wrong team photo, especially when we're doing green screen compositing stuff where we composite the team photo. And then you've got to go back through and redo all of the team photos for everybody. And again, it costs you time and money. So my assistant's going to make sure that all that stuff's filled out. And as we shoot each team, they're going to use a binder clip to clip the forms together. I process my orders by team, each team section. It just makes it easier for me. Also, whenever I upload to, let's say, Miller's Lab, I can drag the team photo down just one time and, then input each individual kid with it. And then when I get to the next team, drag the team photo down instead of having to go drag this team photo down, drag that team photo down with this kid. It's just a big time saver in my opinion, but that's where your assistant is key, is to make sure that stuff's filled out and filled out accurately. So from there, we're gonna get the kid posed. I'm gonna snap a picture, probably 2, maybe 3, depending on the kid, how they look, how they're able to get posed. And then I'm going to read the file number to my assistant. That's how I track each kid. I don't read the entire file number, I just read the last 4 digits of the file number off to my assistant, who then writes it on the order form. That way I know which picture goes with each kid. I'm looking into a barcode system, which would simplify this process. I just haven't found one that fully meets all the needs that I want, because they're not cheap, and I want to make sure that I invest in a system that I'm going to like and not something I'm going to want to get rid of or is going to drive me crazy. So it's very important that your assistant pays attention, writes that number down accurately and neatly, because again, if they write sloppy, if they're not paying attention, if there's a lot of noise, it can create problems for you down the road. One other way that we have done it on one occasion is we had each person hold a form that had their name on it. That is kind of a slower system in my opinion. It's extremely accurate, makes it much easier to track the kids, but we had to do it for that organization because the league was having problems with teams that were taking kids from older divisions and putting them down for specific games when they played tough opponents. And so they created these, not really a yearbook, but these little kind of player identification sheets that each coach was given, and then they could make sure that the kid that out there was playing, number 54, was the kid that was supposed to be assigned there, to keep teams from cheating. So we had to do it anyways, but it did make things easier for me in identifying kids, but it did slow down the process a great deal. And so I really don't recommend that, but it is an option. So once we get their individual pictures done, boom, they go over to the team photo. One of the other reasons why I like doing it this way is if you have a kid show up late for their team photo, then my assistant or the second photographer can actually stall for a little bit, give that kid a chance to get through, get his individual portrait done without me having to delay the entire line of people getting portraits, because the team photo goes much quicker than the individual portraits. Usually your team photographer is going to have some time to sit there and wait in between pictures, whereas the individual portrait photographer's just got to be on it the whole time. Now, typically at these shoots, we are going to have, on our larger shoots anyways, our smaller ones we won't, but on our larger ones, we're going to have a third assistant there, and that person's just kind of going to be a rover. They're just going to be there to answer questions, to help out. Maybe the second photographer needs something, or the line gets real backed up at the front with trying to process credit card orders or whatever the situation might be. And they're just going to be there to kind of help. We usually don't bring in a third photographer unless we're going to do like 350 or 400 or more kids. But those assistants are key. You got to have somebody squared away, especially for the individual portrait photographer. You got to have a solid assistant. And then from there, it's real simple. I come home, I download my images into my computer. I also save a backup copy somewhere on an external hard drive, whatever, in the cloud. I do it different all the time. I probably should create a more consistent way that I go about it. But you're going to want that, because if you accidentally delete a folder or something, you're going to have a lot of problems, and you're going to really be kicking yourself when you have to call and say you got to reshoot a bunch of kids. So that, in a nutshell, is how we organize our shoots. It's really not that complicated, but it's very key that you track these kids accurately, because if you have mix-ups like we did in the shoot that I would mention at the beginning of this video, it's going to create a lot of frustration for the organization. They're going to get upset with you. We pretty much assume, or I assume, about every 100 kids I make a mistake. Usually it could be either a mix-up between 2 kids, or it could be some prints were missing. different kinds of things, but I make about a mistake every 100 kids. That's if I don't do the data entry. If I do the data entry, it's going to jump up to like 2 or 3 because I get bored easy and my mind wanders when I do the data entry, and then I make mistakes, and we might be up to 2 or 3 mistakes per 100 kids. So usually I try to have somebody else do the data entry for me, and it goes much smoother. Unless we're doing green screen work where we've got to extract the kids from the background, it typically doesn't take me more than 2 weeks to do these organizations, and that's up to about 400 plus kids because there should be very little editing for you to do. It's mostly going to be the data entry, and it just doesn't take that long. The quicker your turnaround time, the more these organizations are going to like you and want to hire you. But whatever time estimate you give these organizations, you've got to stick to it. Don't ever give optimistic estimations. I've made the mistake where I've told people, oh, you know what, I should have this back by a week from today. So, on the 8th day, they're calling asking where these images are. And then they get frustrated if it takes you 10 days. If you just told them 10 days from the beginning, they would be fine. If you told them 2 weeks from the beginning, they're typically going to be fine with that. But whatever time frame you give them, make sure that you can accommodate that time. The average turnaround time in my area is a month. So if you can get them back before then, they're usually really happy. And even if you deliver them, even if you give them a 10-day time estimate and you get them back in 4 days, they're gonna be happy about it. So just make sure that you can get it done by the time that you say you're gonna have it done, because otherwise they're gonna complain. That's kind of my tips as far as the organization goes on it. The next video, like I said, I plan on talking about lighting and posing, and then from there we'll talk a little bit about whether you should print it yourself, send it out to a print lab, and kind of that process of how it all works and my opinion on it, and I'll try to answer some questions. Again, I apologize for taking so long to get this out to you. Hopefully I won't take another 10-month hiatus. I don't plan on it. The rest of the year I plan on getting a video out about once a week. And I'll do my best to answer your guys' questions. I appreciate all the support and all the interest in this video series. I've gotten a lot of requests for information. I've tried to answer them, but I've gotten more than I could respond to. So if I didn't respond to you, I apologize. I wasn't intentionally trying to ignore you. I just got a lot of emails and a lot of inquiries on social media about this. And so if you guys do have specific questions that I don't answer in the video series, just send me a message. I'll do my best to get it answered in a timely fashion for you guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.